6 gunshots, 6 bodies, and only one survivor. But how? It was a bitterly cold night on November 1974 in Amityville, New York. The DeFeo family home, a grand 3-story Dutch colonial sitting at 112 Ocean Avenue, was quiet. Inside, 6 family members slept quietly, unaware that their oldest son, Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr., was wide awake, trapped in a darkness far more deeper than the one outside. Butch had always been troubled. He grew up under the brutal hand of his father, Ronald DeFeo Sr., a hot-tempered man who always ruled the household with fear. His mother, Louise, was more reserved. She never challenged her husband's wrath. The family's wealth came from a successful car dealership that Butch's grandfather had built. While they lived in comfort, the walls of their home hid a much darker reality. As a child, Butch was overweight and often bullied at school. His father's solution was beatings, fists, litter bills until he learned to be a man. But instead of toughening him, the abuse twisted something inside him. By his teenage years, he was angry, volatile, and quick to lash out. To keep him under control, his parents flooded him with money. They bought him cars, boats, and even gave him a job at the family dealership where he was paid well despite barely showing up to work. But none of it worked. By 17, he was using heroin and LSD, numbing himself from the world around him. By 23, he was completely unhinged. He would scream at his father in public, threaten his family with guns, and even once he pulled a rifle on his best friend for no reason. Despite the violence, his family never threw him out. Maybe they were afraid of him, maybe they thought they could fix him. Then the voices came. Butch started hearing whispers, low, insidious murmurs that told him things, that his family hated him, that they were plotting against him, that he had to act first. So on that cold November night, Butch grabbed his .35 Galber Marlin rifle and walked into his parents' bedroom, fired 2 shots into their back as they slept. Then he moved through the house methodically, killing each of his siblings the same way. The house fell silent. At 6:30 the next evening, Butch ran into a local bar screaming, breathless, "You gotta help me, someone killed my family." Police arrived at 112 Ocean Avenue and found all 6 bodies laying in their beds face down. Strangely, none of the neighbors had heard the gunshots despite the fact that the weapon had no silencer. There were no signs of struggle, no signs that any of them had woken up before they were killed. It was as if they all had been paralyzed before they were killed. Butch's story fell apart within hours. His alibi was weak, his timeline was off, and when the police pressed him, he finally cracked. "It was the voices," he muttered. "They made me do it." Butch DeFeo was arrested, tried, and convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. But the mystery of that night never faded. How did no one wake up? And how did no neighbors hear the gunshots? And the most chilling of all, what were those voices he claimed to hear? A year later, in December 1975, the Lutz family moved in. George and Katie Lutz, along with 3 children, were drawn to the house's beauty, a large colonial house with the beauty of the river. The price was unbelievably low. They knew about the murders, but they weren't superstitious. They thought they could make it a home. For the first few days, everything seemed normal. But then things started to change. It started with small things, strange noises at night, doors opening and closing on their own, sudden cold spots in the warm house. They tried to brush it off, but the unease settled in their bones. Katie found herself waking up at 3:15 a.m. every day, the exact time the DeFeo murders had occurred. The children spoke of an unseen friend, a red-eyed, pig-like creature they called Judy. George, a rational man, found himself waking up in the middle of the night, staring at the boathouse for no reason and shivering with a cold that no amount of blanket could fix. Then it got worse. The walls oozed a dark, sticky substance. Windows shattered without warning. Shadows danced where no one was standing. George's personality changed. He became aggressive, distant, spending hours by the fireplace, staring into the flames as if they were whispering to him. The family's dog refused to enter certain rooms, growling at empty corners. After that, the voices started. "Get out!" A deep guttural whisper echoed through the halls. Katie saw her reflection in the mirror, her face aged decades in an instant before returning to normal. She swore she felt invisible hands touch her at night, and in the morning when she woke up, bruises covered her arms. However, the final straw came when they saw something no family should see in their home. One night, George heard a noise downstairs. He grabbed a bat and went to investigate. As he reached the living room, the air grew cold, suffocating. He could hear the heavy breathing of something unseen. And then he saw it. A shadowy figure, towering and featureless, standing at the foot of the stairs. It moved toward him. The Lutz family didn't last 28 days in that house. They fled in the middle of that night, leaving everything behind. They never returned. Their story became one of the most famous hauntings in history. Skeptics like me and you called it a hoax, but those who had been there, those who had spent time in the house, felt it, an oppressive energy, a lingering darkness. Years later, paranormal investigators, including Ed and Lauren Warren, declared the house was filled with an evil spirit beyond human understanding. Today, 112 Ocean Avenue still stands. The new owners deny anything strange happened there. Some say the house still breathes. Visitors have reported hearing whispers near the windows. And even some people say they feel watch even from across the street. At 3:15 a.m., the house still remembers, some people say.